Welcome to the Create the Life You Want podcast, where we break down the journey of people just like you going from dream to ownership in business acquisitions, franchises, and startups. I'm your host, Jeremy Ames. Today's episode is brought to you ad-free by Guidant Financial. Guidant is America's leading company helping aspiring entrepreneurs use retirement funds to buy or start businesses. If you're committed to buying or starting a business, you can find out more about your funding options by going to www.guidantfinancial.com. That's Guidant financial.com. Now, let's get started with the show. Hello, welcome to Create the Life You Want podcast. I'm excited for our guest today, Paul Starita. Because I love pickleball. I have fallen in love with pickleball. Maybe it's because I'm 46 now. And so these older man sports really play into my desire to keep competing, but to do something fun in that vein. But Paul's got a really great story. So I'm excited for you to hear a little bit more about his journey coming from a family of entrepreneurship that was in the franchising world, having a little experience with that, and then finding his own path and starting his own company with his vision. And we're going to hear a little bit about his story today. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate it, Jeremy. Thanks for inviting me on.
So first, Paul, why don't you tell us about the business that you run today, and then we'll get into some of the backstory, the origin story of where it all came from.
Yeah, great. So our business is the Flying Pickle. We are an indoor pickleball club, but we're more than a pickleball club. We do everything from lessons. We have a restaurant inside of our facility as well. We have a pro shop, and so it's really kind of just a one-stop shop and community, honestly, of pickleball players here. Whether it's your first time playing or if you're going pro, just like you, Jeremy, you're probably going to go pro here pretty soon, and we've got people of all different skill levels coming to the Flying Pickle to play. We have 18 courts in the facility, some lounge area, locker room with showers as well. So we did a lot of work on it to make it just a pickleball player's paradise.
Yeah, if I was going to go pro, Paul, it'd probably be with the 3 margaritas you have on tap there.
So. That's right. Everyone's pro when they're doing that. Yep.
So, Paul, maybe we could back up a little bit and you could talk about your origin story. Did you always dream of being a business owner? Like, how did this come about that you ended up with this passion and or idea to go down this path?
Yeah, I appreciate that. The answer is no. I didn't think that I'd be a business owner. When I was going to college at BYU, I changed my major 3 different times. And by the end of it, I said, you know what, I'm going to law school. I knew that I was good at sales, and I was, in debate in high school, and just felt like that would really fit my skill set. And so once I graduated college, I was working and going to start law school at night. And I went my first day and just said, yeah, this just doesn't feel right. I'm going to wait till next year. And then next year came and it didn't feel right again. And so I was managing a retail store at the time that sold Apple products. And at about the time I decided I wasn't going to go to law school the second time, I got an offer to work for Apple here in Boise, Idaho. So that's what actually brought me here to Boise, and quickly put away the dreams of being an attorney and started going down more of a sales route. And when I started working for my dad, that's when I started recognizing like, maybe I do want to own my own business. Once I started kind of getting into smaller business, that's when it became attractive to me.
So tell us about the family business. What is your dad's business? How long did he have it? And what was your involvement with it?
Yeah, so my dad is actually a second generation business owner. He started working for Northwest Airlines, actually. And then my grandpa had started 2 different beauty schools called Scott Lewis Schools at the time. And my dad had always wanted to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. So my dad purchased those schools from my grandpa. They were located in Minnesota. And then my dad actually signed on to become one of Paul Mitchell's first franchisees in the beauty school industry. And so my grandpa was a hairdresser. My dad was not. My dad was very much a business person. And so he had that eye for business. He quickly grew those 2 campuses to 3, and then 3 went to 4, with the 4th location being here in Boise, Idaho. And um, so yeah, beauty schools. If you want to become a barber or a hairdresser or a nail technician, you got to go to school to get a license. And so that's what the Paul Mitchell schools are all about.
Okay, Minnesota to Idaho. What's the
Yes,
connection?
there really is no connection. So I was born and raised in Minnesota. That's where my grandpa was, and so my dad moved there as well to be in business with him. Went to law school there. My dad did as well. And the way my dad tells it is that he always just felt a connection to Boise. He liked the area. We came to a Boise State BYU game one time here and said, this is the place I'd like to live. And so I think he just saw an opportunity to purchase a school out here and decided to go for it. And so when I was in college, him and my family moved from Minneapolis to Boise, and so I had never lived here growing up, but eventually made my way out here, like I was saying before. So
there are many layers to this entrepreneurial story. Your
yes,
grandfather was a startup entrepreneur who started some
yeah,
schools. Your dad bought them from him, then presumably converted them into Paul Mitchell franchises.
exactly. Yeah.
So joined a franchise system. Why did your dad decide to join a franchise system?
Yeah, simply put, he wasn't a hairdresser, so he didn't know how to create a lot of the educational systems that he knew
Got it.
he would need to take the schools to get to the next level. And then in addition, he just knew the power of the Paul Mitchell name, quite frankly, at the time, and it still is one of the biggest names in the beauty industry. And he visited one of the Paul Mitchell schools, the original Paul Mitchell school in Provo, Utah, and just said, I want my school to look like this. I want my school to be like this. And so he saw what he wanted and made the connections, and has been a very loyal and very well respected franchisee ever since then. So
Okay, so you grew up with this business in the background and you never thought, hey, I'm going to go work with my dad, or hey, I might want to own this or buy this from my dad at one point.
I really didn't, as crazy as it sounds. And honestly, it was because of the industry. For me, I just wasn't passionate about the beauty industry. And it wasn't until I started working for my dad that I was like, well, hey, even though I'm not passionate about the industry, I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about sales. And so I'm sure we'll get into it. But my time at Paul Mitchell, I quickly was able to recognize, man, I love this. I love what we're doing, even though I'm not a hairdresser myself. So
Yeah. So tell us about that. So your journey is you're working at Apple, and then you think you might go to law school,
yeah.
but you get a better job at Apple. How do you end up at Paul Mitchell? How do you end up back working for your dad versus the man known as Tim Cook?
Yeah, Tim Cook the man. So um moved to Boise, Idaho, and was with Apple for 2 years. And at that time, my dad had been recruiting me for about 5 or 6 months, just saying, Paul, we need some help. Our schools are struggling right now. I think that you might have some great experience that could help us. And Apple's it's a cushy job. You won't get fired. Benefits galore. I mean, I had my first and second sons when I worked for Apple, and I got 6 weeks off for each of them at the time. And
Oh,
so, I
wow.
mean, I didn't even work for several months of those 2 years because I was just sitting back and relaxing. So it was a very, very cushy road where you knew what your pay raises were going to be. You kind of knew your future. And then there's this sort of rocky, unpaved road of going to work for my dad at the beauty school, something I didn't really know anything about. And it was a tough decision. I had to take a pay cut, actually. I definitely had to take a benefits cut, but I could see the potential in potentially taking over those schools at some point and being really involved. Um, when I was on paternity leave at Apple and left for 6 weeks and then came back, I came back and nothing was different. Like they were at the time had just approached that 1 trillion value
Valuation.
mark,
Yeah.
And I just recognized like I am the tiniest cog in the biggest machine ever. Like I literally don't matter here. And as great as the pay was, as great as the benefits were, I just wanted to matter. I wanted my work to matter, and I wanted to feel more fulfillment. And in that first 2 weeks at Paul Mitchell, I worked probably close to 80 hours a week and would come home just beyond exhausted, but I came home fulfilled. I knew that I had made a difference that day. And that's kind of when it clicked for me like, okay, I love small business. I want to be a business owner. And so, yeah, my dad convinced me. He's a great salesman too. Convinced me to come over. Started working for Paul Mitchell and was hooked after that.
Well, it's interesting that you got a trial run in a way that a lot of people don't get a trial run. It's not like they can
Yeah,
just go test drive a small business necessarily for a few weeks and figure out if it's for them.
yeah,
Sounds like what drew you in, Paul, was this combination of an opportunity for ownership in the long run and an ability to actually make an impact in the
yes.
short and medium term. So you go work for your dad. How long do you do that? And at what point do you decide, hey, it's time to move on and do something different, and why?
Yeah, well, so first and foremost, I guess I would say the first position that he put me in was enrollment, of just getting students to join the school. And as soon as I realized that that was a sales job, it really changed everything for me. And we were able to almost triple our enrollments within the first year and a half of me working there. And so I got to see a lot of immediate success, and my dad got to see that as well. And so yeah, that was the plan. It's like, okay, Paul, we're gonna start getting ready for you to be the owner of Paul Mitchell, and I'd like to retire in a couple of years. So that's the goal. Let's start working on that. And so I kind of transitioned roles to from just being in enrollment in one school to then overseeing it in all schools to then overseeing the entire executive team. And it was not without its challenges. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean the work, but just the family dynamic of working with my dad. We talk to each other in a way that a normal boss and employee would not talk to each other, right? Sometimes it was beneficial, sometimes it was tough. Uh, Sometimes I got special treatment, and sometimes I got extra harsh treatment, right? It went both ways, and I was okay with it, right? My brother came on board, someone I really respect, is very, very smart. But then that added now a third dynamic in it, right? Of like, well, who's gonna get what, and who's gonna do what, and who's gonna report to who, and how is this gonna work? And so it was about in 2021 that and that was after 7 years, so 7 years with Paul Mitchell, that I kind of realized, like, hey, you know what? I might want to go do my own thing. I might want to go do my own thing. And I think that my brother is just as smart and as capable as me to take over this thing and make it really successful. I think that my dad felt comfortable with that idea as well. And so it was sort of just this mutual understanding of like, hey, I think it's time for me to break off and do my own thing. It was tough. It was probably one of the hardest things in my life to go through of just coming to that realization of, hey, the plan is no longer the plan, right?
Yeah.
But I also think I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to try something new. So
Did you know what you were going to try next when you made that decision, or did you just kind of leap and hope the parachute would appear?
yeah, yep. I leaped and I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was that I was playing a lot of pickleball at that time to release some stress, and I was really getting into it. I was going through a couple different just personal challenges in my life as well. And I honestly didn't know if I was going to start my own business or just find, a job somewhere else. And so
So, yeah, so
yeah.
walk us through that point in time. So you've made the decision to leave the family company. Now, what do you do? Are you simultaneously looking for a job and thinking about a business? Or are you just taking some time off to sort of decompress? What did it look like?
It was about 2 month time, 2 months where I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was simultaneously making a business plan, a couple different business plans actually for different ideas I had. and looking for jobs. And so right at the end of that 2 months, I got this great job offer from an orthodontist actually who said, "Hey, I want you to go buy dental practices, and we'll buy those dental practices. We're gonna implement our systems, and then once we own 200 dental practices, we're gonna sell it to a venture capitalist or something." And so it's kind of this cool role where it's like I get to be entrepreneurial, I get to have autonomy, I get to make a difference, but I was gonna have a boss again. I was gonna, uh, not have complete ownership over it. I was going to not be able to make all the decisions. And again, it was kind of this industry where I'm like, I don't know that I'm passionate about dentistry, right? Or orthodontia. Um, and then in the meantime, I had made some connections with two professional pickleball players that were here in the Boise area, and saw just the popularity of pickleball going through the roof. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather go broke just trying to do this than not give it a try. Because at the end of the day, I can always, if it's not with the dentist, it's going to be something else. So I feel like I can get an honest job somewhere. I feel like I'm marketable enough. But I'm going to go all in on this. And so it was about 2 months where I decided, okay, yeah, we're doing this. And me and my wife, we prayed a lot. We went through every scenario of what if this whole thing just crashes and burns, and are we okay with that? And, what would it look like to be homeless? Well, we probably have friends and family that will take us in. And so we went through all of that, and we had to get to a place where we felt comfortable that things would be okay no matter what. And talked to a lot of different people that I respected and trusted, including my dad. And sort of just became clear that, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give it a shot.
So tell us about a couple of the ideas you were exploring via business plan, and then how and when you decided to go forward with the model that became the Flying Pickle.
Sure. So two other businesses that I was looking into at the time were just hair salons, because it's just an industry that I was comfortable with and knew. And then I was also looking into pet grooming as well. I don't have a
It's
dog
like hair
anymore,
salon for
but
pets.
it it,
Yeah.
it fell into a similar type concept. Um, so yeah. But when it came to pickleball, my initial idea was to just do a very basic, find an empty warehouse, put up courts, throw up a front desk, and call it good. And I'm very glad that I met my partners who came to me and said, "Hey, we want to stand out and we want to be different. And there are a few things that we can do to stand out and be different and offer a way better pickleball experience that's not just the park with the roof over your head, right?" And so if it weren't for them, the Flying Pickle would look very different today. But luckily we started talking about design, and I was convinced. So that's how we started going down that route.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing is that you were excited about the industry. And so your
Mm-hmm.
goal was like, hey, let's throw something up as inexpensively as possible to go down this path. And it just so happened that you met these two people who were really familiar with pickleball, who said, hey, we know this industry and here's what's missing,
Yeah.
and sort of helped create that vision. Typically, it's the primary entrepreneur who's driving the vision, but it sounds like a lot of the vision of what became the Flying Pickle was coming from your partners because they knew it so well.
Yeah, funny enough, I've been in sales most of my life, but I'm also a person that's very easily sold. So when the
Yeah.
partners came to me and they're like, "We know what we're doing, we know what we're talking about, this is what we need to do," my vision quickly aligned to theirs, because I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. You guys know what you're talking about." And yeah, you're exactly right, Jeremy. It was the industry. I've always loved sports. I've always loved competition. I'm not even that great at any sport in general, but I love playing them, and I love the social aspect and connection it brings. And so I quickly got very, very excited about doing something with pickleball. And then when you combined uh, I guess just the notoriety of my partners' names and the clout that they have in the community, I knew that we had something when the three of us got together. So
So tell me a little bit about how the business plan morphed. It sounded like your initial thoughts on the business plan were probably pretty inexpensive. And as their vision sort of sold you on what this could look like, probably got a lot more expensive. in terms
It
of what it was
it
going to
totally
take to
did.
make it happen.
It totally did. Yeah, I was very naive at first as to what this type of thing would cost and what it would take. And so, you know, my initial thought was like, well, hey, if we've got X number of courts, all we need is X number of members, and that's going to pay all the bills, and then we can have, a few extra things in a pro shop and sell some snacks, and all of that's just going to be gravy, right? And once we hit this number of members, we'll be break even, and then every member after that's going to be, profit as well. And that would be really nice, right? And that probably could have worked. To me, in the pickleball industry, almost everything is working right now because we just need more courts. But in the long run, if 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 we had gone down that road and then someone that did our current concept moved right next to us, almost all of our members would leave us because they would just be better. And so we decided to look at what's going to give us the longevity that we're going to need and want as this space gets crazy crowded very, very fast. That's going to set us apart and give us staying power in this industry. And so as of, not to jump too far forward, but as of today, we are at our membership capacity. And so and that's 9 months in, right? And so we feel like we did something right, but yeah, the model definitely changed where we said, hey, we can max out on capacity and we're still probably not going to be breaking even, but we have all these other services and things that we're going to offer in the club that if we can create a big enough and tight enough community in here, this is going to be their, besides work and home, this is going to be their third place that they want to be in and spend their time in and hang out with their friends at, and they'll spend money. So
Interesting. So the financial model you built basically has the membership paying the bills, and all the benefit comes from the other ancillary, the restaurant, the pro club. What else? Like walk us through the financial model you landed on and why.
sure. Yeah. Our big four revenue drivers right now for us are the membership dues. That's our biggest. The second biggest is actually guest fees. So people who choose not to become members, but they just want to play on a random Friday night and they bring in all their friends and they pay a guest fee, which is anywhere from $15 to $20 a person, right, to rent a court. They might be renting paddles as well, so that counts as also. That's our second biggest revenue driver is non-members coming in. And so we've actually limited our membership to make sure that we continue to have room for guests to come in, because guests actually bring in more money per
Those are higher
person
margin.
than a member. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The number three revenue driver for us, it's kind of tied. 3 and 4 will kind of go back and forth month to month, but it's our restaurant and then the pro shop. So our restaurant, we look at our restaurant as an amenity. We are not a Top Golf model where we are entertainment. The restaurant is really there to glue the community together, right? You can sit down, break bread after you've played at a competitive pickleball match, grab a drink, and laugh with your friends, right? Most pickleball clubs don't offer that. They don't understand that vision of creating a community and leaning into the social aspect of pickleball, which is what gives it its magic, right?
Well, presumably you don't have to leave that place. So you go in as a member,
No.
you play pickleball, you hang out and eat lunch with your friends for a couple hours, then you go play some more pickleball. Like it can be a
Yeah.
full day
And
thing.
then you shower and go back to work, right? You shower with our towel service and then you go back home looking like you never even played. Yeah, exactly right. And not only that, but all the gear that you need is here as well. And that's the kitchen and our pro shop do very similar numbers, but the reason why people buy their paddles from us rather than Amazon or Shields or anywhere else is because they can actually play with the paddle here before they have to buy it and commit to buying it. So we have a free demo program for our members. They can try any paddle that we have for sale, see if they like it, swap it out with 5 different other ones during that one play session, figure out what's right for them, and then they can purchase it from us. So we do a lot in just shoes and paddles, backpacks, and balls, anything that you'd need for a pickleball player. So
So give us some more details here. How did you figure all this out? I believe you'd never done something like this before, right? You've never taken down a warehouse space. You've never done a
Mhm.
significant tenant improvement. You've never spun up a restaurant. So, how did you figure all these things out?
Yeah, I think I definitely consider myself religious, and I will say that some people call it luck, and I call it a lot of prayer and God answering my prayers, because you're right, I didn't know what I was doing with a lot of this, but I was confident in my ability to figure it out as I went. And so, when it came to the construction stuff, well, I have a friend who's in real estate development and has overseen a lot of construction projects. So I'd call him up and get his advice and have him look at stuff for me. I happened to meet somebody who had owned their own restaurant for 9 years. And we had become friends over the course of a year. And when I called him up and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to do a restaurant in my club. Do you want to come figure it out and run it with me?" He said, "Yeah, let's do it." And Gabe is our chef, and he's done an incredible job with the food in the club right now, and made it so it can be scalable. We can replicate what he's done in other clubs as well, if and when we decide to expand. And so I guess what I would say, Jeremy, is it was a lot of networking, and it was a lot of just problem solving as things came up. And then we planned the best that we could, right? This is a new industry. And so it's not like a country club necessarily. It's not Top Golf. It's not like your traditional tennis club that you think, because we don't have that type of clientele. We really want it to be as accessible to as many people as possible. So we did our due diligence. We went to other clubs. We looked at whatever financials were out there, and we gave it our best guess. And so on our pro forma, it's kind of cool to look back. We were actually right about a lot of things, and then we were really wrong about a lot of other things. But it was typically we were wrong in a positive way, where
Yeah,
we were doing better than we thought we would do. So
great.
yeah, I don't
Let's
know if that
talk.
answers the question, but
It
it was
did.
just
And
kind of
now,
take the punches as they come. So
yeah, now I want to know, what were the places you were most wrong? What were the assumptions you had that were the most off? And why, in hindsight, when you look back now, can you say, "Oh man, I think this is why we were off. This is what we learned."
yeah, the biggest one that we were most off on from a positive standpoint was the pro shop. I had I had I was off by 900%. I think we were expecting to do about 20, or sorry, we were expecting to do about $2,000 to $3,000 a month out of our pro shop, and it was 10x that is what we do. And um so that's where we were most wrong in a positive way. And then of course there are expenses that were more than we thought they would be, payroll being one of them. And I thought I had that payroll nailed down, and I was just wrong about peak hours. We need two people at the front desk. We can't just have one person at the front desk. And when we have a lot of these private events come in, we just need more kitchen staff than we would typically need. And so things like that, where we weren't going to know until we were in it, but
Yeah.
we gave it our best guess.
Let's talk a little bit about, because in your business, there's two things, right? On your pro forma, you've got, in this particular type of model, you got your ongoing expenses, like your
Mm-hmm.
labor and your food and whatnot. But then you had pretty significant upfront expenses, I believe, because I've seen your space and it is pretty decked out. So maybe you
Yeah.
could talk about, what were your expectations going in about what you thought it was going to cost? What did it actually end up costing? And then we can talk about sort of how you figured out how to finance it.
Yeah. Well, with my original model, I had called. I mean, I was just calling people to get quotes on what we thought it would cost. This is when we just had a floor plan. We didn't even have a building yet. And so that initial cost that I had guessed on my old model of just slapping up courts, calling it good, to what we did was a little more than double. It's a little bit more than double that, and it was tough. So we had to bootstrap it. I mean, I had a pretty good banking relationship with a bank in town from my days at Paul Mitchell. We had acquired, when I started working at Paul Mitchell, we had 3 schools. By the time I left, we had 7 or 8 schools. And the bank had financed everything. They understood the industry. They knew us. They trusted us. And so when I went to a bank and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing this new venture. Will you lend me some money for it?" they were all over it. They're like, yeah, absolutely. We know you, we believe in you, we trust in you. We got all the way to the final approval for that SBA loan and get denied at the last second. And so we had to kind of scramble to find a different loan. We found investors um, to help us make that initial down payment on the SBA loan. Uh, it's a long story. I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns with just finding that money, but
What blew up your first SBA loan, and what did you do from there?
yeah, what happened was so I'll give you a timeline. We started, this is in 2022. I approached the bank in March, and our goal was to be open by October. Okay. And I had actually approached them in January, I'll say, but we started getting really serious in February and March, where I'm actually giving them my financials and giving the business plan and doing all that. And we had talked to the banker, the person doing the loan, and their boss, and they were both all in. Yep, we're moving forward. And as we were moving along with just progressing with that, we actually started construction in May. And I said, "Hey, we're going to start construction. Are
Okay, time
we
out.
good to go?"
Time out. So you started construction before you had closed your SBA loan.
Before it had closed, yes.
Before it had
But I
closed.
had
Where did you get the money to do that?
So we had got money from investors, right? We
Okay.
talked to pickleball players that were passionate about our project, and we were taking $25,000 to $50,000 at a time. That's it. Nobody put in more than $50,000. And so we raised $590,000 by doing that. I
Wow.
would literally just take people to the Paul Mitchell office, and I'd put on a button-up shirt and sell them on the vision. And I said, "Hey, here's the valuation we can give you, but in addition to that, we'll give you a lifetime membership. We're going to get you some really cool gear, and we're going to put your name on the wall so everyone will know that you were involved in this project forever. You're immortal now on the wall." And for people that were excited about pickleball, I told each and every one of them, I'm like, "Hey, listen, if I went into the Shark Tank with this deal, I probably would not get a deal, right? They would probably, Kevin O'Leary would call me a cockroach and kick me out. But for you, a pickleball fanatic who loves the sport and wants to see it grow, this will have value for you, right? You get a lifetime membership to the club. You're going to be involved. You're more in the community now than you were before." And it appealed. It appealed to a lot of people. And, I couldn't have done it without them. I'm super appreciative of them. I know all of them. I talk to all of them all the time. They're here in the club every week. So,
Yep.
um,
So you've
so
got
yeah,
now 10 to 20 investors. You've raised almost $600,000, and you think, I've got this SBA loan in the bag. So we're going to move forward with
yeah.
construction because it's the only way we're going to be open by October.
And I even checked with the bank. I said,
Of
"Guys,
course. And of
I
course they
don't
said,
want yeah." They said, "Oh yeah, let's do it. Move forward. Go ahead." Yeah. And in the meantime, my construction friend that I mentioned earlier, his name is Hunter. He said, "Paul, you should have two more backups just in case, because I've seen enough of these fall through." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I know this. These guys have done so much work for us. I know them really well. They wouldn't be telling me it's going to go through unless they know it's going to go through." And so we get through May, no funding. We get through June, no funding. We get through July, no funding. And at this point, I'm going to the bank every week, either calling them or going into the physical branch and looking at the people in the eyes and saying, "This needs to fund like right now because I'm just about out of money." Not only had I spent all the investor money at that point, but we had been doing pre-sales on memberships, and we had done $400,000 to $500,000 in membership pre-sales.
oh, wow. So you're
Not
already
four to five, sorry,
you're $1 million in.
$300,000 in membership pre-sales, and so yeah, no, we're deep in. We're like $800,000 in already, and it's just been coming out. And they're like, "Hey, listen, we are going to have this funded in 2 weeks. Like it's just going through the approval process. This is normal, blah blah blah." And I'm getting real nervous, and even have a discussion with the supervisor, and I'm like, "Guys, we got to figure out a different solution if this isn't going to go through. And again, just kept getting the assurances that it was going through. Well, in early August, they call me and they say, "Hey, listen, it just went to the final person to get approval, and they want you to have a guarantor that has $1 million in liquid capital in order for us to approve this loan," which for me was impossible, right? I mean, nobody that I knew was going to put that much money on the line for an unproven concept, and especially without getting a significant portion of the business, right? Like
Yeah.
I was going to have to give way too much to get that. And so, as much as I hate to say it, my dad got involved because he uses them for Paul Mitchell. We talked to as high up in the bank as you can get, and basically they held firm. And so, I don't know if you want me to pause there if you have questions, but anyways, we found another lender, and I can get
How?
into that.
What did you do? That's what I want
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. So when things started getting, when I could tell that there was maybe trouble at the end of July, I started reaching out to different banks and eventually got put in touch, I should say, with some people at ICCU, Idaho Central Credit Union, and they said, "Yeah, we're interested. We'll take a look at it." When I started sending them stuff, when I got that final, like, "No, we're not going to do it without the guarantor," I told them, I'm like, "Guys, I'm going to have to pause my construction project if we don't get this funded as soon as possible. Can we do this at light speed?" And they did. They had that loan closed within 24 days, that SBA loan. And so it was really just kind of a miracle, Hail Mary. They saved me. But I had to pay for it on the interest rate. They definitely took advantage of the situation, I'll say. But to me, it was worth it because we were able to open November 2nd, I think it was. So
Yeah. It's
within a
almost
week or
on your
two of
timeline.
almost on our timeline.
So did you end up with ICCU with an SBA loan or with some non-SBA loan at a higher interest rate?
With an SBA loan. So it
Okay.
was still SBA. We got the other bank to send most of their packaging over to ICCU. The other bank was pretty accommodating in helping transfer that. They felt bad. I don't know
Yeah,
how bad they felt, but
probably they're motivated to protect the relationship with your
save
dad
face
and his business.
because
So
it's a significant relationship. It is. So,
yeah.
but yeah, we transferred that over. I was doing paperwork till 1 or 2 a.m. some nights to just get them everything that they needed as quickly as we could. And we did have two subcontractors that just didn't work for about a week or two in here because they hadn't been paid. I had run out of money. I had gotten loans from different friends and family to try to keep the project going, but ultimately, we had probably about a week or two delay where no one was working, and but then we were able to get it approved. The money came in, and we were back in action. So
Okay. So let me go back and do the math here. You've got almost 600K in investor money. You've got about $300,000 in prepaid memberships that people have paid for in advance.
yep.
How much of an SBA loan are you taking down?
So our SBA loan, in addition, we got some tenant improvement allowance as well. So our SBA loan was 2.9 million.
2.9. So you got a $2.9 million SBA loan. We can talk later about how big a payment that is ending up with you.
Big.
And then what did you get the landlord to kick in?
We got them to kick in $500,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. How long of a lease did you have to sign to do that?
We have a 5-year lease with them and 15 years in options in 5-year increments. So, yeah.
All right. So you open it in November.
Yeah.
And how do things play out in the initial months? What went exactly as expected versus what did not go as expected?
Oh man, it's. I'll tell you this. It was the weird. Have you watched college football at all?
A little bit, yeah.
So it's always stuck with me every time I've seen Nick Saban at Alabama win a national championship. he doesn't even look that happy. Like he just looks like relieved. Like,
Yep.
okay, well, I guess nothing went that wrong, right? But he's not even like enjoying the moment. I will say on our first day of being open, there were hundreds of people at our grand opening. I mean, it could not have gone better. It was really just this surreal, like spiritual experience almost of just seeing everyone come in, being so impressed, loving it. They're signing up for memberships, they're playing, they're having a great time. And I think I had gotten, I don't know, 15 hours of sleep the whole week before because I was up every night getting the place cleaned up, getting it ready. That I almost just felt, rather than happiness, I just felt relief. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're open, people are loving it. Like, okay, I guess I'm not going to be homeless in the next month or two, right? So it was this relief, um but other than that first week where it was more relief, it was just unbelievable. It's hard to describe. It was just so cool to watch it working and seeing people playing pickleball and having fun. And that's what we're about. And so yeah, there were unexpected twists and turns. The club manager that we had hired to basically run for the club quit within the first 2 months. And we didn't replace her. I've just been doing that work in her stead. We sold more memberships than we thought we would, and then as we kind of transitioned to the springtime, it slowed down more than we thought it would as well. It's picked back up since then quite a bit, but there were 2 months where I was like, oh man, this is looking scary. So there have been a few things. We've learned so much. We've been very intentional with what we're learning and making adjustments. I can get as granular as you want, just from the times that we have our open plays to the
Yeah.
pricing of our lessons and the way that our booking system works. But it's been super helpful for me to just be the club manager, to be here every single day, to learn as much as we can and be nimble, just make changes on the fly as we see fit. So.
What occurred to me as you were talking that you actually have the perfect business if you were going to be homeless because you've got a locker room with showers
So
and you've got a
true.
restaurant with food. So you could
I've
you
got
could
an
sleep in your
office. We
car
lay
and
some
make it
mats
work.
down. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. Yep.
Let's back up because I want to hear some more details. When you say sort of casually, "Oh, we sold $300,000 in advanced memberships," that is
Yeah.
a huge number of people that are giving you money. So walk us through the process of what you did for that, because that's an interesting strategy for businesses to both build momentum for when they're going to do a grand opening and, in your case, create some cash to fund some of the initial construction. So what did you do?
Yeah, we had our architects create some renderings. We made a video, like a hype video that we put on our social media, and then we hit the parks. We set up tables at the parks by the pickleball courts. We were at tournaments and we were just hustling. I mean, we were just telling everybody about it, handing out shirts and saying, "Hey, we're a pickleball club, we're opening." And if you know anything about the pickleball community, it's a very passionate group. And it's a very tight knit group. So word got around very quickly of what we were doing. We were lucky to be the first to market of like a true dedicated pickleball club. And so it's kind of a novel concept for this area. And again, we were doing it right. And then you add in the names of my two partners who everybody in the pickleball community knows and respects. And so yeah, people were sold, right? We did a great job of selling the value before we were even open, of what the place was going to be like. They understood our vision, they understood what we were trying to do. And so and then we gave them an attractive offer, right? So a founder's membership, we said the first year will be, their first payment would be good for 15 months instead of 12 months. That was a mistake we can get into later. We gave them this really cool swag bag with like a Nike sweatshirt and Nike shirts and some pickleball gear. And then we gave them a price lock. So every year that their membership renews, their price will not go up. And we limited it. So we said, hey, we're only doing 250 of these, and after that, we're done. And so we sold out of those in August. So 2 months before we opened, we were sold out of those memberships. And then we just went to our normal pricing model. and kind of let people sign up from there as they wanted to. So
Okay, let's back up because you just said that was a mistake. So tell us what
yeah,
you learned with this pricing benefit you gave for
yeah.
founder members.
So think about it this way: we sold in founders memberships. It was just over $300,000. I got all of that money in 2023. Now we're in 2024. So 15 months from November 2023 turns out to be February of 2025. So there's now $300,000 that will not hit my account in this fiscal year, a very important year for us, especially as we can, are looking at to franchise later, that are not going to hit my books this year. And so we know that that revenue is coming. We think that a very high percentage of people are going to be renewing that membership, but it's not going to hit till 2025. And so we actually probably could have been profitable this year if we had just made that benefit be 13 months instead of 15 months.
Yeah.
But because it's hitting in a different calendar year and fiscal year for us, it's not going to hit. And so it's a real bummer. The 15 months was just an arbitrary number. We could have made it anything else. I think we would have had the same success. So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
What were your other big learnings? You could go back in time. What are
Yeah.
the top 2 or 3 things you would do differently?
Yeah, I definitely think that. Um, I probably made a lot more exceptions and accommodations to people at first. I think that because I'm the owner and I'm kind of the face of the club now at this point, people feel like they have access to me and they can ask me for special favors. They can ask me for special exceptions on things. And oftentimes I've just done it because I'm like, yeah, that's reasonable. We can do it this one time. And I'm quickly learning it's not sustainable and it's not right and it's not fair to other people either.
What's an
Um,
example?
uh, People asking for additional guest passes for their family, or people want to book out several weeks in advance at a consistent time so that they can make sure that they have those courts on those days at those times. And we've made accommodations like that, but now that we're full, we can't do that anymore, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so now we're going to deal with more disappointed people because they're used to those accommodations, and now we're going to have to take them away and say, sorry, we can't do that anymore. We told you we weren't going to be able to do it, but they've been used to it. So um, probably that. And then I also just think that coming up with more disciplined uh, cash systems. We didn't really think about the cash that we were taking. Like our software is not great with cash management as far as doing cash deposits and counting the till in the morning, counting the till at night. And so I think that we've had some money go missing, whether it's from theft or just negligence. We haven't been as tight as that in the beginning when we first opened as we probably should have been.
How meaningful is that in your business? Like what percentage of transactions are happening with cash versus something
Not
digital?
much. I mean, 10 to 15%, but it matters to me. I mean, every penny, I don't
Yeah.
want to take anything for
But you're
granted.
still talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Over a
Yep.
year.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then lastly, we ran this promotion too. I don't know that I regret this, but I probably let it go on too long. We did this promotion when we first opened, where the first time you visited the Flying Pickle, it was free. And that got used over 2,000 times in our first month and a half. And so we probably let it go on too long because we lost tens of thousands of dollars in revenue from that. Now, it was a great entry point for people to come in and experience it, but we knew that people were cheating the system and just creating a different email or whatever to take advantage of that. And so we know that we probably, of those 2,000 people that came in, I would bet like 1,200 of them were actually first time users, and the rest were just people taking advantage. So yeah,
Well,
that we probably could have done that a little different too.
yeah. If you take a step back, Paul, and you look at what your experience has been in getting this business up and off the ground, and you look at it less from the specificity of your business model, but more from sort of the big picture of entrepreneurship, like what are the one or two things that if someone were coming to you and saying they wanted to start a business based on what you've lived through, what would you tell them to do or to think about?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Jeremy, I really do suffer from imposter syndrome where I'm like, I don't even know how this happened. I'm very much a person that as much as I try to plan ahead and think ahead and look at the risks and evaluate those risks, I'm definitely, I feel like I'm a gamer in the fact where I like, once I'm in it is when I'm really performing well and thinking on my feet quickly and stuff. And so for me, just speaking for myself, I don't know if this would be great advice to another entrepreneur, but for me, it was like, once I decided that I was okay with the risks moving forward and then just going all in with it, it made all the difference for me. There was no plan B, right? It was either this is going to work or it's going to crash and burn, and then I'll deal with that later. But I wasn't thinking about what I would do if it would crash and burn because I was just really, I mean, I couldn't fall asleep most nights because and it still happens to me because I'm just thinking of different ideas and things. And so if you can find something that you're passionate about that you can do that, and certainly passion isn't the only qualification by any means, but it really helps me, right? And combined with all of my experience before, I don't think I'd be where I'm at right now if I hadn't worked for Apple and if I hadn't worked for my dad. And quite frankly, I've had a lot of calls to my dad and my brother and other business owners and with you, Jeremy, that have really profoundly shaped the direction that I'm taking the business. And so I know that I'm not smart enough to do it by myself. So I try to just connect with smarter people than me and work really hard and maybe I haven't worked as smart as I could at sometimes, but I've tried my best and I think that every member in this club knows who I am and has probably had a conversation with me and they know that I care. And same with the employees. And so um, that feels like a terrible answer that was kind of all over the place, but I just love what I'm doing and it really has made a difference because I'll go to any length to see it succeed because I love it that much. So
Here's what I've heard, Paul, is what you shared. From your experience, what was important is just to do the worst case scenario planning and then commit. And then
yeah,
once you were committed, that's sort of your forcing function for figuring all the other things out. In fact, I was thinking to myself as you were talking, if you had a plan B, would the Flying Pickle exist?
I don't
Or
know.
would you have
Yeah,
taken one of those bailout points when it
yeah,
looked like all was lost and
yeah.
you had to sort of turn it around? I'm curious, Paul, you said, you're so happy. Can you contrast for us what your life looks like now versus what it looked like when you were at Apple and what it looked like when you're working for your dad? I think one of the big questions that often occurs to small business owners is it's easy to get excited about all the things it could be and get scared about all the things that are unknown. Um, would you trade what you're doing now for any of those things that you've done in the past? And if so, why not?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, but I can look back fondly on the past at with my time at Apple and the people that I met and the things I experienced, the things that I learned for sure, and just um, you know, it's a company I deeply respect and admire, and I learned a lot from them, and I've tried to implement things that I've learned from that into my business today. And working for my dad even more so, and I did have ownership in that business, um, but at the end of the day, it was my dad's business, right? Even though I had some ownership in it, even though I was making a big impact, and even though I loved what I was doing there too, I really did, but it just is different. It really it just feels different today, knowing that it is mine, it's my baby, started it from the ground up with a lot of help. Certainly didn't do it by myself, but there's just a deeper connection for me, and I get to make my own mistakes and learn from my own mistakes. And create systems that I know are going to work for me. So there really is no comparison. I mean, it's very different, but no, I wouldn't give up what I have now for anything. Even though there are days where I really truly miss Paul Mitchell. There are some days I miss working with my brother and my dad.
Yeah.
Um, those were some great times, but I love what I'm doing, so I'm happy.
Glad to hear it. You said create systems that work for you. I'm curious. Have there been any ways you've designed the business around creating the life that you want?
This is such a small thing. This is going to sound silly, but you know, working at Paul Mitchell, one thing that was very important to my dad was just kind of being more old school. Like he always, if he was ever at a meeting where any employee would see him, or if he's going to meet with any other franchise owner or someone from Paul Mitchell, he wanted to be just dressed up and looking really nice, right? And he expected the same thing for us. And I'm not talking about looking like a slob, but I just tend, my natural thing is just be a little bit more casual with my dress, and it fits my personality more. It's just who I am. Um, Not that I can't get dressed up. I don't mind doing it. I don't have anything against it. But here at the Flying Pickle, we've purposefully not put polos on people at the front desk because we don't want it to feel like a snobby country club, right? We want it to feel relaxed, like this is a place where anyone is welcome, and it doesn't matter what you look like, what you're dressed like, you fit in here, and it's just about having fun. And so it's just a small thing, but like my dad just had uh, particular things that were really important to him, that were not so important to me, that we've made changes with intentionality of how we're going to be different in this way. And there are other things that I admire about my dad that I do try to do the same, like showing each employee how much he values them and how much he cares about them. I took that away from my time at Paul Mitchell, and it's made a difference with me here today. So that's just a small example, but yeah, we just lots of little nuances and differences
Yeah.
and things I try to emulate, things I'm intentionally different with.
No callers. That's what I heard, Paul. That's the life you
No
want.
callers.
All right. My last question here is going to be about where are you going next with the Flying Pickle? What's next for you, and what, if anything, can we do to help? Like, what do you want our audience of people to know?
Well, Jeremy, I mean, I owe this to you. I for the first 6 or 7 months of the Flying Pickle being open, quickly realized that we had kind of um, captured some magic, right, with what we're doing. I've been to a lot of other pickleball clubs, and it's just different. What we have here is just different. And what's kept me up at night is just how are we going to bring this to other cities? Like I can't go through that, try to get another SBA loan and do, like I just don't know that I've got it in me to go through that whole process again. And a reason that makes this place successful is that I'm here, and Nick and Suzanne are here, and we talk to our members and our guests every day, and we're very invested and involved in the pickleball community. And so I got a lot of advice from a lot of different people. And it wasn't until I called the great Jeremy Ames that I really felt like you asked me the right questions to help me realize what the best path forward would be. And so, as of about 2 weeks ago, we have hired a franchise consultant and a franchise attorney to start going down that path of franchising. And we hope to be able to start franchising early next year, 2025. We think that the franchise model is going to be perfect for us, with the elements that we can offer our franchisees, as well as what we know it's going to take for other future clubs to be successful, and having invested people that are in there. And so I owe that to you, Jeremy. I got to hand it to you. You really helped me see for myself, and I finally felt comfortable with the answer and the direction moving forward. It really sat with me well. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. So we're going down that road, and we're super excited about it and the challenges that it's going to bring. And like you mentioned before, I've got experience as a franchisee, so I have a unique perspective that I hope will help me improve as a franchisor.
Well, thanks, man. That's really flattering. Well, Paul, congratulations. I love hearing about your story, especially the sort of near-death encounter that almost sunk this idea before it ever got off the
Whew.
ground. And I'm super excited to hear more about the future of the Flying Pickle. I suspect we're going to have people in our audience, since we're constantly talking to people who are thinking about what kind of business they might want to start, who look at something like you've built and said, oh, maybe I want to have a pickleball club
Yeah.
somewhere. So
Reach out.
don't be
Yeah.
surprised. If you get a
We'd
few
love
reach
to
outs,
start talking.
if somebody does listen to this and they are interested in finding out more, I know there's limited amounts you can share until you get all your documents in place.
Yeah.
But what should they do? Where should they go? Who should they reach out to?
Yeah, reach out to me. Let's talk. It's just my email is paul@theflyingpickle.com. Reach out to me. Let's talk. I don't even know what I'm allowed to share, what I'm not allowed to share, so I just err on the side of caution. But I know that we can at least have a conversation and talk about the Flying Pickle and look into what we might be able to do in the future. So please reach out. Be happy to schedule a call and just talk.
Great, Paul. Thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Create the Life You Want podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to future episodes by clicking the subscribe button, you know where. If you're an aspiring business owner, you may also want to subscribe to the Create the Life You Want newsletter for more inspiration and tips delivered to your inbox every week. You can find the link to that in the show notes, as well as on my personal website, jeremyames.com. If you've already decided you want to start or buy a business, consider exploring your financing options by heading to our sponsor's website at www.guidantfinancial.com. That's GUIDANT financial.com. See you in the next episode.